Commissioner, Minister, good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Sujit Chaudhary and counsel to Jenny Kwan. Minister, just a kind of a stage-setting question. So during your time as Minister of Public Safety, can you estimate how many CSIS warrants you reviewed and signed?
I don't have the precise number. I can tell you in the general time frame that we were talking about, there were, I believe, 3 times. In the general time frame, 54 days, a few days before and a few days after.
But you were minister for a couple of years, correct?
Yes, sir.
So over that time frame, can you estimate how many CSIS warrants you reviewed and signed?
And again, I don't have a precise number, and
Sure.
I don't want to guess for you, sir. But it was not routine, because these are very significant legal matters and applications that are brought forward. I did several, and I'm a little bit reluctant to offer a precise number because I don't have that.
So your former deputy minister, Mr. Stewart, testified that there were, he estimated as well, when I put the question to him, he said between 8 and a dozen a year. Does that sound roughly in the range?
Well, it's pretty consistent with my suggestion that it was several.
Okay, good, there we go. Okay, so Minister, as you know, Ms. Astravas was here testifying, and I'd like to put some of her evidence to you. So could we please call up WIT 158 and particularly paragraph 16? Good. So I'd like to direct you here. So this is Ms. Astravas's, this is a summary of her in-camera testimony that she adopted as her evidence when she was examined here. And I just want to take you to the end of what that paragraph, and it's the 3 lines up from the end. It says, she said, that is Ms. Astravas, said that the director, that is Director Vigneault, and the minister, that would be you, had discussed issues related to the warrant a number of times. Before the warrant application arrived. And then there's an additional sentence where her evidence is, she also said the director had advised the minister that CSIS would be moving forward with this warrant application. So I want to ask you some questions about that. So, this morning you said there was a single discussion that you had.
A single discussion on the subject matter that subsequently became the subject matter of a warrant application.
I see. Well, let's look at the sentence. Ms. Astravas says the director and the minister had discussed issues related to the warrant a number of times in the plural. So she is, the plain and ordinary meaning of that sentence, admittedly it's a summary, is that there was more than one discussion regarding issues related to the warrant. So, but you said there was a single discussion some months before.
Yes.
So is this, do you disagree with Ms. Astravas's evidence?
I believe Ms. Astravas is referencing the briefing, and it was a fairly extensive briefing that I had received several months before a warrant application, and a warrant application was not referenced in that briefing. It was just the intelligence they had at the time.
And what was it typical in your experience, and we've established that you reviewed a number of CSIS warrants in your time, to receive such an advanced briefing from the director or any member of CSIS prior to the warrant application actually formally arriving at the ministry? There
were a number of briefings provided to me in a secure location, top secret briefings of other matters that CSIS was also involved in investigating, and that whether or not they subsequently became the subject of a warrant application was not connected to those briefings. So it wasn't the first time I saw a warrant application that was related to a subject for which I had been previously briefed.
Okay, fair. And so now I want to then, that's a good link to my next question. So her evidence is, she also said the director had advised the minister that CSIS would be moving forward with this warrant application. Do you recall being advised by Director Vigneault, again, before day 0?
No, not before day 0, and far closer to day 54.
But that would have been after when you say far closer to day 54, are you referring to after day 0?
Yes, very much. What I'm saying is that in the lead up to the request that I go to the CSIS regional headquarters for the purposes of signing a warrant, that was when I first became aware that they were moving forward with a warrant application, but we did not discuss, because we didn't have secure communications, the subject of the warrant, only that it was being brought forward.
So just to clarify, so I think what Ms. Astravas's evidence here is that the director had advised the minister that CSIS would be moving forward with this warrant application. That's prior to it actually being brought to the ministry. Did that discussion happen or not?
No, not prior to what is referred to in the timeline provided as day 0. I was not aware that the CSIS was intending to bring forward a warrant application prior to, actually, I became aware of this particular application on what is referred to in the timelines as day 54.
So I want to ask you some questions about this, what you call a discussion. What Ms. Astravas says was a number of them, but we'll leave that as it is. And if you can't answer the question on grounds of national security, please say so, sir. And it's not my intention to trip you up in any way. It's just to put on the record the question, and then the commissioner and her team can follow up with you if they wish to. And so in this briefing, this advanced discussion, did the director disclose the target of the investigation?
And sir, I'm not going to talk about the particulars that were provided to me by the director, but I have acknowledged that there was a briefing that took place that was related to the subject matter of the subsequent application that we've been speaking of, but I can't speak about the target.
Now, you know that Ms. Tessier from CSIS testified on a CSIS panel last week, and she provided evidence that after this, that there was a further meeting she had bilaterally with Ms. Astravas prior to the warrant application arriving. Are you aware of that meeting?
No, sir.
And her evidence was that she shared with Ms. Astravas at that meeting the name of the target of the warrant. Were you aware of that fact?
Again, I had no idea that conversation ever took place.
So going back to this discussion with the director months before day 0, did the issue of the third parties whose communications with the target arise as a point of discussion? And if you can't answer, you can say so.
I'm afraid, sir, that you're taking me into areas of the briefing that I think could compromise the national interest, and I would defer to the justice as to whether or not I should answer that.
No, the question will be written down and we'll follow up if need be.
Good, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, sir. And so
The usual procedure, just for you to know.
Oh, it's fine. Thank you, ma'am.
yeah, it's a bit of pageantry, Minister, but we have to go through this process.
And as you can imagine, I'm also trying to be appropriately cautious about my legal.
No, sir, I understand. And so I want to come back to a question I think Ms. Dan might have raised, which is about Ms. Astravas's participation in this meeting, or what she calls a number of discussions with CSIS, with Director Vigneault prior to the warrant arriving. And you said you can't recall, if I'm correct, that whether she attended this discussion.
I can't confirm with certainty that she was in the room.
So here's the thing, though. She's provided evidence about the existence of that discussion or the occurrence of that discussion. So would you agree with me that either she was there or you told her about it afterward?
Yeah, I did not discuss with, outside of that secure room in which I received the briefing, I didn't discuss this with anyone.
I see.
And so if Ms. Astravas has testified she was aware of it, then she may have been present during that discussion, but I can't recall. I want to be able to testify truthfully here, and I can't recall whether or not she was in the room, but that would be consistent with her appearance.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, so then I just have a few kind of final questions then. So Minister, you and Mr. Vanner put this too, as this idea of kind of putting your legal obligations as Minister of Public Safety before any partisan or party considerations, and there was evidence about that. So I wanted to drill down to that, what that might mean specifically, if I could, in practical terms. So hypothetically, if a warrant application came to you and you knew the target, would you recuse yourself from any decision regarding that warrant?
Been involved in very many warrant applications, sir, as an officer in charge and as an affiant and as the minister, in which I have known the people named. I would only recuse myself if I felt a conflict existed, and in none of the warrant applications that were ever brought before me did I ever feel that there any conflict existed.
I see. So it's only if there were a conflict of interest of some kind that you would recuse yourself.
And again, I think it's very important to make sure that we are always honest and forthright about knowing individuals, and certainly I believe I always have been. But there has never been a warrant application in which I felt that I was in any way conflicted in fulfilling my legal obligations as the Minister of Public Safety to approve a warrant application. And in fact, every application that was ever brought before me, in fact, I have approved.
And so I want to ask you the same type of question about the Van Wienen list, which seemed to be a point of particular interest for Ms. Astervas. And as you know, that's something, the intercept list is something that's a standard part of this type of a warrant. And so if you were to know any of the names, hypothetically, on a Van Wienen list, what steps would you take in relation to your role in approving that warrant?
And quite frankly, knowing the Van Wienen list is a list of known persons. And so knowing people on that list, again, exercising my statutory responsibilities for the approval of the warrant application to go forward, whoever's named in the warrant as a target, or who may be named on that Van Wienen list of known persons whose communications could be intercepted, is frankly irrelevant to my determination as to my responsibility to approve that warrant if it's proper in form.
And with the same kind of conflict of interest analysis that you offered up as a limiting principle or rule in relation to the approval of a warrant's target, would you apply the same lens in relation to the Van Wienen list and the names on it?
Again, it's very hypothetical because at no time did I ever feel in any way conflicted with approving the information that was put before me. Some of again, I don't want to, I've got to avoid telling you, there has never been a circumstances where anyone named in any warrant application, or quite frankly, even in my experience as an affiant and the officer in charge bringing forward these applications under Part 6 of the Criminal Code, there has never been an occasion for me where I felt any conflict of interest in fulfilling my legal obligations to fully disclose and to act upon my legal responsibilities.
Okay, sir. So in my time remaining, there's one last theme I want to return to. So if the registrar could please call up WIT 121. There were a number of witness statements provided by your former colleagues at CSIS, or your current colleagues, I should say. And so I'm interested in paragraph 12, please, if we could. And so, again, Minister, you'll recall that I asked you a minute ago about a briefing that Ms. Tessier had held with Ms. Astervas prior to the warrant being submitted. And I just want to take you to the first sentence here in paragraph 12. And so and I should just tell you that this was confirmed in cross-examination. Ms. Tessier also briefed the Minister's Chief of Staff prior to the warrant being submitted, so it did not arrive without warning on the Minister's desk. So I'm just curious about that. Is it the case that CSIS routinely gives advanced briefings to the Chief of Staff of the Minister of Public Safety to warn them in advance that a CSIS warrant applications is arriving at the ministry?
I have no idea, quite frankly, because frankly, Ms. Tessier or Ms. Estravis have never told me about this discussion. I don't know what their intention or what the routine is.
So you have never heard of such a thing?
Well, and again, I'm not surprised that officials would talk to each other. It's kind of their job.
Well, but why would you want to give warning? So here's the thing, sir, that I'm trying to understand. The warning would be to you, because it is your decision ultimately to approve or not approve a warrant application, and that warning was passed up through the Chief of Staff. Why would CSIS have wanted to warn you in advance that the warrant application was on its way?
Frankly, I have no idea. It's a question best put to the person who suggested that they were issuing a warning. I did not require one, and in fact, in this case or in any other case, I did not receive one. In every case, CSIS, Public Safety, my office worked together, and when the warrant application was complete for my approval, it was then brought to my attention, and I went and approved it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.